Class of 1984.
I run this school, man.
No teacher can teach them. No parent can reach them.
I am the future. I am the future. I am the future.
If they are the future, who will stop them? Class of 1984. Rated R.
When does a dream become a nightmare? When do we learn to live with fear? When we cry out for some salvation, why is it no one seems to hear? You got to learn, it's up to you. If you can learn that the dream just might come true. Take a look at my face, I am the future. Now how do you like what you see? Take a look at my face, I belong to the future. The world belongs to me.
Mark Lester's Class of 1984 portended the demise of the American urban public education system. Plagued by drugs, littered with graffiti, populated by indifferent students and disillusioned teachers, organized by ineffectual administrators, and terrorized by gangs, Mark Lester's Abraham Lincoln High School reeked of exaggeration in 1981. Nearly 30 years later, such a setting seems not only plausible, but has become cliché. If this film were simply the first in a line of good teacher and bad school genre flicks, it would deserve mention. But more than a vanguard, this film is an artifact encapsulating a key transitional period in American political thinking, a struggle between the progressive left and extreme right in the early 1980s. Class of 1984 was inspired by the dilapidation of the director's high school and surrounding neighborhood. The narrative follows an optimistic and naive music teacher, Andy Norris, as he struggles with his new job, directing Lincoln High School's orchestra. Unwilling to look the other way as a gang led by the baby-faced but tyrannical-minded Peter Stegman terrorizes his students and fellow faculty, Mr. Norris challenges the gang leader's authority. The ensuing war between teacher and pupil leaves a classmate hospitalized, a teacher killed, and Mr. Norris's wife raped. The duel culminates in the night of the orchestra's debut recital with only one man left alive. Released in 1982, Class arrived on the scene at a crucial time in American political and economic history. The Wall Street yuppie years were not ushered in on January 1st, 1980. Today the years 1980, 81, and 82 keep popping up in the news as reference points to our current economic recession. In 1982, inflation was well into the teens, unemployment reached double digits, and gas prices, adjusted for inflation, were higher than today's. Couple these sobering economic realities with steadily growing rates of property crime, and the American dream looked more like a nightmare by 1982. With this as our backdrop, Norris's struggle with Stegman becomes an allegory for America's dilemma of choosing two political paths, left or right, to find solutions for their problems. Norris is a teacher. The early socialists, communists saw themselves more as educators whose sole duty was to spread the idea of Marx and prepare workers for the coming revolution. He represents the progressive left with all their optimism in humanity and faith in public institutions. Stegman, who was self-aware of his destiny as the future, represents an exaggeration of the political right. More on Stegman and his gang in a moment. The surrounding cast, Mr. Norris's colleague, Terry Corrigan, played expertly by Roddy McDowall, his boss, Principal Morgenthau, and local detective Stawitsky, each represent failing institutions which have either withdrawn from the problem, misunderstood the solution, or have been rendered impotent by current laws. Our hero is Mr. Norris, but as is often the case, the villain can be far more interesting. Class is credited with being one of the first films to incorporate authentic punk rock fashion and music into a mainstream picture. The inclusion of this punk culture was necessary in order for Lester to criticize the far right. Whether allegations of sexism and racism were rooted in reality, a few punk rock bands of the early 1980s were labeled as fascists. The director could have used a generic gang of hoods as antagonists, but without the fascist symbolism, the themes would not have resonated nearly as well. Stegman is a gang leader. Such figures can prove quite powerful in times of crisis, as Hitler in his essay did, Weimar Republic, or Mussolini in the League of Combat did in post-World War I Italy. The surname Stegman has German origins and can be literally translated as one who lives by the path. Is the film trying to warn us about choosing this course of action where might is the only mandate? Stegman's gang is racist. It is no coincidence that the only rival gang we see in the film is composed of black members. During the assault of the rival gang member, Fear, a hardcore punk band who had to fight allegations of fascism themselves, has their song Let's Have a War as the background music.
Say, what's this?
Deal and Fear.
Take it. We're the only niggas that sell shit in this school.
Stegman's gang is sexist. The lone female gang member, Patsy, exists only as a sexual creature. Her body is used primarily as bait or as a distraction. Contrast Patsy with Mr. Norris's ally, Deneen, the helpful music student. With her close-cropped hair, she is almost a non-sexual being. And one could argue she becomes the film's true hero by leading the orchestra during the recital as Norris, lured by his rage to the gang's level, exacts his revenge on his wife's attackers. In one of Michael J. Fox's earliest roles, credited without the J, he is the other helpful student who is singled out for an attack by the gang. With his Dorothy Hamill-style haircut and baby face, he too could be described as androgynous. In socialism, both men and women are ideally equally valuable as workers. Gender lines become blurred. The way in which Mr. Norris carries out his revenge is noteworthy. Mr. Corrigan, his colleague, carried a pistol with him to class and even brandished a weapon in one powerful scene. But Mr. Norris eschews the use of guns. When the time comes, he will dole out justice with much more proletariat-friendly weapons. He kills the first gang member, Fallon, with a table saw. He kills Drugstore with a blowtorch, and attacks Barnyard with a lead pipe. Here Norris is emulating those oppressed peasant revolutionaries who turned their implements into weapons. The means of production have become means of destruction. The final scene, which had to be reshot in order to assure a commercial release, Mr. Norris reaches his hand out to save Stegman, only to be attacked a final time. He responds with a punch that sends Stegman to his death. Originally, Stegman had committed suicide by letting himself plummet. The reshoot is not only more commercially appealing, but is more fitting, since it predicted the course of 80s American politics. Andy Norris lost his faith in his political philosophy when he came face to face with the harmful byproduct of it. We know little of Stegman except that he is intelligent and immoral. We are allowed only one peek into his home life, and it is insightful.
Didn't I?
Yeah, cooler.
Katie, what is this? You've got 4, 5, 6 more parking tickets. What are you doing, parking in a bus zone?
They ain't got no parking at that stinking school.
That school is the only one that would accept you, you know that. What do you think? You like the sweater?
Yeah, you look great, Ma.
Get the door, will you, honey? Get the door, Pete.
Hey, come on, Ma.
Where's the bloody security in this building?
His mother pays for his parking tickets and answers his door while he watches TV. She is oblivious to her son's duplicitous nature because she is more concerned with her personal life. She's getting ready for a date. The father is missing from the scene. The message? The sexual revolution and feminism in the 1970s may have had a hand in creating this monster. Norris became a fascist in order to defeat the gang. He used force to solve his problems. The school, we can only assume, improved afterwards. America became a little bit fascist in the 1980s. The government looked the other way and corporations were allowed greater freedom of operation. The economy improved. Ultimately, Class of 1984 may be an affirmation of Aristotle's balanced political philosophy. Too much of anything is a bad thing.